Novel trends within higher education over the last decade have seen the emergence of innovative learning initiatives that involve the application of new emerging technology tools, delivery platforms, and teaching models and pedagogy. One such initiative is competency-based curriculum, which has become the biggest buzzword in academia today. Implement a competency-based curriculum, it is imperative students know, can apply, and can institute knowledge, skills, and abilities desired in different walks of and empowering national schools diligently working towards bridging this gap by zealously spearheading a network of skills, attitudes, and value system that prepares the students for life beyond the school. We are proud to collaborate with Australian Council of Education Research India, which is a not-for-profit research organization established in Australia to initiate global dialogue on competency-based education. The mission of ACER is to create and promote research-based knowledge, products, and services that can be used in learning across the world. The Australian Council for Education Research India and Ahlcon International School are pleased to welcome you to the special seminar titled Global Directions, Competency-Based Curriculum, Teaching, Assessing, and Reporting. I am Prerna Anand. On behalf of Ahlcon International School, extend a cordial welcome to Dr. Phil Lambert, National President of Australian College of Educators, Mr. Ahlcon CEO, the Australian Council for Education Research India, stalwarts for rigorously working on exploration of competency-based curriculum. I take this opportunity to record a pleasant audience of schools, Dr. Ashok Pandey, Honorable Principal of Ahlcon International School, respected Principal of Ahlcon Public School, Dr. Deepak, FC Senior Section, Mr. David Goodwin, Section, Ms. Lisa Raji, as in primary section, Ms. Kavita Shah. I also feel privileged to welcome to the LG principals and teachers. To discuss the darkness of words, find the lamp of knowledge in our minds, the lamp of love in our hearts, the lamp of awareness in our hopes, and the lamp of compassion to serve others. To make this morning a blessed one, I now request the Honorable Bishop, like your speeches as a tribute to the deity of life.
Yeah.
When the invocation descends, in the heart and darkness, it illuminates it. When there is already a beam of light, it brightens it. To count the blessings in the hand of Almighty, and like a white, untrue void of Thank you, dear students. It was indeed blissful and heart-touching. It's an honor to welcome Dr. Phil Lambert, the National President of Australian Competent Educators, ACE Director. Phil Lambert, Consulting Proprietary Limited, HR Professor, University of Sydney, former General Manager, Australian Curriculum at Australian Curriculum Assessment and Reporting Authority, ACARA, and Regional Director of Schools, Sydney. An internationally recognized school education expert, Dr. Lambert, led the development of Australia's first curriculum. He is a curriculum expert to OECD Education 2030 initiative and has recently been engaged by the Education Ministry of multitudinous countries to train senior curriculum assessment and supervisory policy officers to support the implementation of their respective national curriculum reforms. I request Director Sir to welcome our esteemed guest, Dr. Phil Lambert, is a memento. Welcome you, sir. Thank you, sir. It gives us immense pleasure to welcome Mr. Amit Kaushik, CEO, the Australian Council for Educational Research, India, a not-for-profit research organization that undertakes commissioned educational research, large-scale learning assessments, professional development, and capacity-building programs for a range of clients in India and South Asian region. From 2001 to 2006, Mr. Kaushik was Director of Elementary Education in the Ministry of HRD, Government of India. where he was associated with the development and implementation of various policies related to Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, as well as India's international commitments on education for all. He has also been a consultant to UNESCO Paris, Nigeria, Iraq, and Lebanon, as well as UNICEF Iraq and Yemen, working with them from time to time on assignments related to literacy, planning for education for all, non-formal education, accelerated learning, and the Global Partnership for Education. Since 2007, he has been working with a number of education sector organizations in the private and not-for-profit sector. I request Principal Sir to welcome our esteemed guest, Mr. Ahlcon. We welcome you, sir. Thank you, sir. Cherish your visions and your dreams, as they are the souvenirs of your soul, the blueprints of your ultimate achievements. Today, we have amongst us an educationist, a visionary who has taken Ahlcon to greater heights. He is the SDG ambassador, under whose dynamic mentorship the school has been taking robust endeavors towards sensitizing young minds and thus actualizing the sustainable development goal. It's an honor and delight to welcome Dr. Shofan.
Thank you, Dr. Phil, Amit, your friend, Professor Bhavija, Sanjay, Deepak, my distinguished colleagues from ASER, my NPSA principals and educators. I am absolutely thrilled to see you after a long time, and my colleagues, former colleague from British Council is here. I can see him also. My former colleague is here, who is now a principal. My present colleagues, and I cannot but mention one person who is sitting here. Phil, you'll be very happy. One of my students is here who is a vice principal in a school. So you see the mix and diversity of this group. And also many of my colleagues are here. And this program is live streamed, and some people have joined on Zoom also. So that 2 years of Zoom is continuing. I'm sure you'll be very happy about it. The third dimension is many people are still on the roads because today, it's only proving, Amit, that if you do a good work, there will be some obstacles. So I never knew that today itself the CAP people will be on the strike. So much so that many of the delegates have not been able to join. Either they are hunting for a cab, or probably they will take a ride on a auto rickshaw today. Because, they are also on a strike. So God bless them. So anyway, let me tell you, sir, one of my colleagues from Mayo College Ajmer has come, so you must clap for him. He could make it from Ajmer. Which is almost 150 kilometers further than Jaipur. So he has come from there to listen to you. Oh yes, 150 kilometers ahead of Jaipur. So that's your magic and that's your magnetism. So ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you a couple of things. You're sitting in a hall or auditorium, which has been a silent witness and host to many programs where a lot of knowledge, ideas, workshops have been generated. And I'll particularly mention only to what has happened from Australia in this particular hall. So we hosted Ms. Professor James Awan Tikatis from I think Southwest Sydney University, and he went from here and students gave him the title of a rock star. So he was a rock star professor who interacted. We have also hosted the entire Department of International Education this, and it was headed by Jacinta Beth at that time when she was here, and we conducted a program here. Another very famous personality was here, Adam Gilchrist. Many of you remember him as a famous cricketer, contemporary of Sunil Gavaskar in Kapil, things like that. And he came here as a representative of Monash University at that time. But unfortunately, no questions were asked about Monash University. every question was about cricket. So he was happy, but professors from Monash were not happy. So that has also happened. Another very interesting thing has happened, Malini, you will remember it. One of the very celebrated science teachers from Australia, and his name is Mr. Ken Silberg. He came here and he trained about 100 teachers from our NPSC schools in this very hall. And during his training program, there was an alarm for earthquake, and all of us vacated this hall. So I'm just warning you, if something like that happens, don't get panicky about it. Quietly move out, 2 minutes, and then we'll ask you to come back, and everything will be normal. So just don't worry about it. So this is a little bit of a background. Amit is a very dear friend, and you heard Prerna was saying, I just want to reinforce one of the, I would say, outliers in the civil services. Nobody from Indian Railway Services would quit for the sake of education. But I think the trigger was that your appointment in the Ministry of Human Resource Development Ministry then, which is Ministry of Education now, and ever since he has not looked back. And he is devoting fully himself to education. Currently, he is the CEO of Australian Council for Education Research, and that is the organization that has brought us all together here. And it is due to his efforts that Dr. Phil is here. Dr. Phil, very, very interesting personality. I had only heard about him, but I met him. He came here almost 8:45 or something, and since then I have been interacting with him. And I believe yesterday's Easter tides have brought you here, right? Easter tides moved eastwards to India from Australia, and they carried you here. So you're carrying all those holy things and all the blessings of Jesus. But he revealed to me that I enjoyed the Easter holiday, but I practiced Buddhism. So he is a very great personality, and many aspects of his personality we discussed. I don't know, I will repeat them all, but you will have an opportunity to interact with him, and do interact with him, and you will find a lot of things to take away from his experience. I think Prerna told you, but I will only give one of his introductions and attributes here. That he is the National President of Australian College of Educators, which has India chapter also here. I think we will speak about that so that all of you introduced to it. And there are many other colleagues from ACER. I would introduce them. Varun is here. I don't know Ananya has come or not. But you interact with them, and then you will find that what all opportunities lie for you for networking, for writing, for creative writing, for workshops, assessments, and things like that. Because once you are here, I think you should make good use of your time and energy, and whatever dedication that you need for the sake of education. So, Dr. Phil, thank you very much for taking time out. And you have come at a time or at a juncture in India's history of education when people like you were most needed. And let me tell you why I'm saying so. We have had recently an announcement of our national education policy after 34 years. And I was just telling Phil, I hope you will not misunderstand me or start guessing my age. But when the last education policy came, I was just 2 or 3 years old teaching. And when this policy has come, I have left only 2 or 3 years for my active career. So please, no other guesses, but I'm just giving you a context of the national education policy, right? So the policy has come, and policy has many shifts. And one of the shifts that this policy has, in my opinion, is many new jargons, okay, in education. And those jargons are, very mysterious in sounding, mysterious in phonetics, mysterious in understanding, mysterious, even more mysterious in implementation. And one of those jargons is competency-based learning, right? As if we have been teaching our children for the past 70 years after independence and making them incompetent. And that is why the national education policy says, no, your education has to be competency-based. But I'm sure Phil will contextualize it, and he will tell that how we have to move from rote learning, from cognition, and us for the future, and our children particularly, And what are those competencies in the context? And what are those competencies in the international context? I think that is something very, very important. And Phil is the authority in something, and he will decodify for each one of us what exactly. And that is why I said that you are almost got us at this, and sitting here in the room of finest school heads, educators, who are totally devoted to education and to the implementation of the national education policy. So, with these words, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you here after 2.5 years gathering here in our hall. Otherwise, this hall, some of my MPs would know, famous for such gatherings. I'm very delighted that we resumed it, and I'm very hopeful that we will continue it. I want to take this opportunity. Also, Dr. Deepak is here, who is the Ahlcon Public School, and under the leadership of both of them, both the schools, we're going to see new transitions, new wave of innovations and transitions in terms of those competencies. My request to you is that post the session by Phil, we have also arranged nice lunch here, and I'll be very happy to be lunch together on this. Please don't be in a hurry. The moment Phil's last sentence is over, you are out of this form. Generally, we don't allow it, and we have a large space to the right places. So if you are leaving early, you will stop. So please don't mind that. All right. And let me also not forget to welcome Dr. Raveja, who is a very distinguished professor who taught in Delhi University, and she is the founding member of the Australian College of Education India. So, with this introduction, I thank you all once again. God bless you all, and we all together have a great session with Phil. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your enlightening words and also for acquainting us with such a candid and interesting manner. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Amit Kaushik, the Australian Council for Education Research India, for opening remarks and introducing our esteemed speaker.
Dr. Lambert, distinguished guests, it's a great pleasure to be here. And let me start by having my own welcome. Those who have seen me. Very pleased to have you here this morning. I'm very grateful indeed to Ahlcon International School and Ande for hosting the event and having us here. It is indeed a shame that the cab strike has led to our colleagues not able to join us. But we are live streaming the event, so I hope that we can be present. Now, Brenda has already introduced the Australian Council of Education Research to you in some details. So I don't say that as a not-for-profit, when we were set up in 1930, the issues that we were examining were pretty much the issues that we can discuss not only in this country but also in other countries. Namely, the issue of how we should learn and how can we improve the management of silver. So in 90 years, not very much has changed in the questions that we ask. How we answer them perhaps is different and it varies from country to country. But the fundamental questions all remain the same. As a wholly owned subsidiary of ACR India is the office that offers our services in South Asia. And we do primarily, we work with governments or with international agencies, or we work with schools. We working with governments and international agencies It's like providing technical support to, for instance, is from the National Achievement Service. You're all familiar. We conducted the National Achievement Service in Bangladesh several times. We are currently working with both Nepal and Bhutan at how good quality, high quality assessments. On the school side, we work with schools by providing standardized assessments based on international principles, international needs, similar to other large-scale international assessment studies. You all familiar with PISA. You may not know that it was ACL that conceptualized, designed, and ran PISA for OECD for 7 years. And I'm pleased to say we'll be doing so again for 2020. So our expertise in trying to understand how children learn, what they learn, and it all comes from the fact that our entire mission in life is to improve learning. When you can improve learning unless you can measure it to understand where the child is first, only then can you think about what needs to happen next. And there are lots of very interesting things that ACR has at the possibility of reading curriculum from the whole age grade kind of approach that we currently have. Because I need not say this to you, you're all experienced teachers, you know that in any classroom that there is a percentage of children who are at least 2 grade levels ahead. There is a percentage of children who are 2 grade levels behind, and there is a bulk which is modest. And the unfairness of our system child into a class based on the age level she has reached, and then expect every child to start from the same place and end at the same place very now you know that this is not possible. So the whole concept of between the age and the grade is considered a question. To my mind, the national education policy that we had released in 2020 actually has 2 very significant aspects. The first is the emphasis on foundational learning, because what we've seen year after year through survey after survey, showing you one of the ASR survey, which is not to be confused with the annual status of education. Annual status of education report. Very different from ECEL, which is the Australian Council for Education. Research, also very different from ASR, which is the computer company. If you have computer companies, please do not write to them. So, as ASR has shown year after year, more than 50% kids in class 5 are unable to read a class 2 text. Now, this underlines that foundational literacy are important. So, making sure that kids acquire the skills they should in grades 1, 2, and 3 is actually fundamental for them progressing beyond that to learn higher competence. So that's the one aspect that I think is very important. The second aspect is discussion around competency-based. As Dr. Pandey rightly said, it's a phrase that's been thrown in there with very little explanation of it. The fact is that the world is moving towards competency-based learning. In other words, looking at how to apply the knowledge that they have acquired, as opposed to reproduce the knowledge that our current systems are focused on rote learning. It is about, yes, of course, children acquire competencies along the way. They're not incompetent as Dr. Pandey pointed out. But the fundamental, the basic expectation of them in an examination is their ability to reproduce whatever it is that they have studied, not necessarily to apply it. I think the application aspect is what the world is moving towards. The Australian College of Educators is actually something that was set up in 1959, and it is still the oldest and longest serving professional body for educators. I'm delighted that we have had the opportunity to run an India chapter of ACE here with some very distinguished members who joined us as founding members, including Dr. Pamir and Dr. Karthik Avechar, who is also present. And the objective of doing so is to provide a forum here for discussion, debate, opportunities to learn, opportunities to share information, share your own knowledge, share your own experience, and in general to provide a platform for strong professional development for educators at all levels. My colleagues who are here will be able to provide further information, but we are in the process of launching the chapter formally, and we are inviting memberships. So I would encourage everyone to take a look and see if it makes sense to be a part of the college and to understand what the India chapter is planning. One of the biggest projects we're planning is an action research project which will be guided by Professor Rama Matthew formerly from the Delhi University. And we're looking forward to having a lot of people, a lot of teachers engaged in that because it's something that will be of very practical use in the classroom. I'm delighted, therefore, that Phil is here today. As you heard, Phil Lambert, former general manager of CARA, the Australian Curriculum and Reporting Authority, when he was responsible for Australia's first national. He is the president of the Australian College of Educators and also chair of the board, and has had an extremely distinguished career in education, starting at himself as a teacher, a principal, and moving on to various other roles. One of the things that Phil has been working on has been the whole issue of competency-based learning across the world, very closely associated with OECD, OECD 2030 agenda. And we're all looking forward to hearing what he has to say and to learn from him about directions that the world is taking in implementing competency-based curriculum. I'll stop there for now. Thank you all again for being here today, and thank you for having us. I'm delighted that we had this opportunity to share with you plans that ECR has, plans that the college has, and to have the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for the invitation. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Phil Lambert, National President of Australian College of Educators, to share his expertise on competence curriculum, teaching, assessing, and reporting.
Yeah, magic. Thank you, and thank you for that warm introduction, and congratulations for showing some competency to get here today. Quite a challenge. Dr. Pandey, Dr. Yadav, Amit, and Dr. Vidya, and Ahlcon International School, and colleagues across various school sectors, and it's a great honour. Like Ashok said, also got the cards on the door. We don't want anyone leaving during my speech as well. So you'll be stopped at the doors there too. We'll have time at the end. I'll leave time for questions. I mean, you can give me a signal when we're about 15 minutes before the end. I can answer questions about cricket, probably not as well as an international Australian representative cricketer. I do hope the ground will move for you during the speech, but not for any seismic reason, because you'll take from some insight into what we're trying to do across the globe for our students. I emphasise that. It's for their future.
Yes, please.
Okay, so we're going to talk about global direction. Why are we heading in a particular direction? What is it? What is that direction? Some observations from various sources. I'm going to talk about reform logic, the logical alignment for this to actually happen. In relation to curriculum, in relation to teaching, in relation to assessment, and in relation to reporting. Those four key areas, of course, underpinning all of this is learning. I'm going to talk about some of the challenges to competency-based reforms and some of the opportunities, strategies that we can take to make this happen and people for their future. And we're going to leave time for questions and comments or any concerns that you might have. So, first task I'm going to give you. I want you on a piece of paper, or if you've got something digitally, I want you to just do a quick sketch of an 18-year-old. Any 18-year-old, it could be a silhouette, it could be non-gender specific. Just want to draw the head. I want to do the full body. You might want to do a Da Vinci. I don't know, but just a quick sketch. And just do that for me. Don't worry, we're not going to share these. I'm not going to assess. I'm not going to move around and do an ACR assessment of your visual arts capabilities or competencies. Okay, am I getting a signal people have done that? Yeah? Okay. I want you to identify 5 competencies, 5 things that you would want any 18-year-old leaving this school, your school, could be any Indian students, any 18-year-old, indeed, any 18-year-old across the globe. What would be the 5 things you think we haven't done our job as educators if students leave without being equipped with these 5 competencies? Around your picture, just identify 5 big competencies every 18-year-old should leave. They've been in school 12, 13 years of schooling. When you've done that, can you look up so I know some people are ready? Got some there? Good. I'm going to see some volunteers soon. This woman in the red mask is very keen to go first. I'm going to need a principal's or a teacher's voice from across the playground calling out to a student. So you're going to need to project nice and loud here. Can you just tell me the top of your list? What was the first one? Big voice. No. Sorry. Oh, we've got a microphone. So if we can find them over here, thank you. Woman standing, yeah.
Holistically developed and future ready.
Oh, okay. Future ready. Okay. This gentleman here. Yeah. Yeah. We've got a microphone coming to you. Yeah. Yes, it's a communication. So the ability to communicate. Okay. Yes, this gentleman in the front here.
Problem solver.
A problem solver. Yeah. Thank you. Something that someone has said.
Collaboration.
A collaborator, someone that can work with others. So a communicator, problem solver, collaborator, future ready. Any others that we have? Yes?
Critical thinker.
A critical thinker, so able to look at information that they're provided with and determine what's relevant, what's important, distinguish fact from opinion. Yeah, good. Hand in the back here.
A socially and emotionally empowered child.
Emotionally
Empowered child.
emotionally empowered, so ready to deal with all the things that can come their way. Like when my flight, I couldn't make it directly here, so I had to go via Dubai. I have a lot of resilience and patience at the airport. Yes. Culturally responsible, recognising difference, valuing difference, and appreciating difference, showing an appreciation, that kind of inclusiveness. Yeah, nice. Thank you.
Managing stress levels.
Yeah, resilience. I think the Americans call it grit. Recognising that there are going to be difficulties and handling disappointment. Yeah, yeah. If you don't succeed in an exam, okay, so let me next time think of how I can improve and let me manage that. Let's go for 1, 2, last. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I'll give you that. The woman in the blue sari and the 2 women at the front here. Yeah. Whoever wants to go first. I wonder how many of these on your 5 you've just ticked off. Yes.
Sir, I think the 18-year-old should know how to delay gratification and not be how to delay gratification and be have to be about.
Oh, okay. Yes, be fair. Yeah.
Okay, so I feel that you should also become an entrepreneur.
Entrepreneurial skills.
That's right. So instead of being
So we want to make lots of trucks and
not really,
no, it could be social entrepreneurs. So finding solutions. There's an economic benefit to it, but adding value, innovation. Yeah, good. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think that's where you're coming from. When I said Trump, you went like that, so I'm assuming you meant other forms of innovation. Yeah.
I feel 18-year-old should be adaptable to any circumstances.
Flexible and agile in their mind. Well, you're all talking about competence. That's the kind of thing, yeah. And notice something that wasn't said. All of that. Thank you. Who was that? Yeah. So even though I know geography teachers are passionate, if there's a geography teacher here, they didn't necessarily think geographical skills, capabilities. We didn't go directly to subject areas. The good message is though, these are still they're important vehicles. And when you look at the various subject areas, there are these competencies and natural tones, some in a few of these, some in a lot of these. So we're not talking about the rejection of subject matter. We're not talking about the rejection of subject areas. When I work with different countries, I relax. No country saying let's get rid of subject areas. The disciplines are important, but competency elevated for a whole lot of reasons, and you mentioned all of them. Okay, let me go through this. So why? Well, there's a change duality happening. You would see it all the time. You bought some device and then 2 years later, it's of no value. You've got to upgrade. So things are disposable very quickly. Change is happening incredibly rapid. New technology redefining our relationship with people, but also discovering new ways that we can grow plants, animals, and so on. And of course, there's ethical issues with all of that. And there's a transition from what was information age to new knowledge, not a knowledge-based economy, but new knowledge. That excellent point that was made over here about entrepreneur. Every country wants new knowledge. Every country wants its young people to be the creators and be creative in their thinking. And that's not just related to arts, if you like. It's actually creating new knowledge that is saleable and value and adds value to the community, to society, to the globe. And there's workplace reforms, the use of technology, but a whole range of what we once called soft skills. They're still called soft skills, but they have a different meaning. I wrote a paper on this around soft skills with a colleague of mine, and it's a reinterpretation of skills. Soft skills are malleable. You can move them, they're flexible, as somebody said here. That means that they can be adjusted when the circumstances change. And that's what we need from workers, not fixed. Not fixed. In fact, you know, when I'm employing someone for my company, the hard skills, the qualifications, tick. So I've got 20 people applying for this job. They'll get ticked because they've got the same qualification. And yes, I know status can matter. Someone's got a qualification from Harvard. Someone's got a qualification from University of Melbourne. Someone's got a qualification from University of Delhi. Somebody's got a qualification from a university I've never heard of. Tick. They've all got the qualification. Now the criteria for the job, the person that's actually going to be drawn from this. When I talk to their referees, when I look at their reports, when I look at all the things that they're doing, when I interview them, I'm looking for a whole lot of other skills. And guess what? A lot of them were the ones you mentioned. The degree doesn't tell me that. Can they communicate? Are they cold? My company works internationally. We're working in different time zones. We're different, across different cultures. I want somebody who has cultural and knowledge and adaptability. They're problem solvers. When we get into circumstances where we need a problem solve, I don't want somebody that says, I wasn't taught that. I want somebody who thinks, okay, what are the various strategies I could use to get around this situation? What is a problem? This is like a problem I solved. So I'm looking for a person that's got a whole lot of competencies. Yes, they've got hard skills. I'm looking for the soft skills. They've risen in value exponentially. Ecological stabilization. I work with a lot of the Gulf countries. I've come here from Kazakhstan, working in Kazakhstan, oil-rich countries, Norway. These are countries that basically earn their money from selling things in their ground. They know that the time is ticking on that, and that they need to diversify, need their young people to have a whole range of others. So we've seen revolutionary technology. You see it all the time. Instability of norms, big value changes. In Australia, we had a vote on same-sex marriage, and you would have 10 years ago that would not have been a vote, a referendum that would have got up by a great majority. This is a picture from Ireland, one of the most Catholic countries in the world, the same. So you have this incredible value changes across the world. Things are moving rapidly. Substantial global inequality, as we know, great poverty and great wealth. New forms of violence. Every time we create a solution to one form of violence, just try to get through the airport days, and terrorists, sometimes homegrown terrorists, create a new way of violence, and we have to rethink again and put in new measures. Yet we never actually look at what's caused this. What is the root cause? Just keep on trying to find a solution. In sum, as the OECD and others say, we're in a world. Predictable, it's complex, it's ambiguous. COVID-19, if ever, Buka wanted a perfect example that everyone could grasp in one go, well, that's an example of it. And boy, weren't some of our competencies tested their responsibility, respect for authority, problem solving, health literacy, statistics, and digital literacy, making sure that the information you're getting is accurate. Okay, so after 18 years, we've created a world, a VUCA world for our young people. We didn't plan to do this, it's happened that way. And it's our responsibility to equip them with a whole range of competence to not just survive or live, but to thrive. We want all of those 18-year-olds to have those competencies you wrote down, and maybe some others as well. Yes, we know literacy and numeracy is high up there. Every country has those two competencies as its first two fundamentals. For the OECD, we've got a couple of other fundamentals. One of those is digital literacy. Another is health, physical literacy. Interestingly, another is data literacy. We are inundated with information. There's a lot of opinion masquerading as evidence. We've got to really equip our young people with competencies that are going to help them with these fundamental tools. And there's a whole range of other competencies. You mentioned a number of them that are also if you like, competencies for the more, we're 22 years in the 21st century. They're more than 21st century skills. They're skills that and competencies that people need now and so here are some of the responses. We've got the global interest in competencies. By the way, what we are talking about is when we say competencies, we're not talking about skills. We are valuing knowledge. We're talking a composite. All of the competencies you mentioned involve knowledge, the application of it through skills, and also disposition, values, and attitude. All of those are present. When I came from Kazakhstan, they've asked me to help them in 6 values into their soon-to-be constructed national curriculum, and 7 what they call universal skills, their competencies. LinkedIn, of course, is now the main tool used to employ HR departments, to find employees and what they look for as skills. They're looking for these skills. Hard skills vary based on the job. Soft skills are required for every job. You're doing your students an incredible service for life, for thriving, equip them with these competencies. These are surveys, so people think of PISA, don't they, Alan, as literacy and numeracy and science, but the OECD has been working on these incredible other forms of this, as is ACER, the collaborative problem solving, global competence, creative thinking, social management skills. You were mentioning those. In the audience, you mentioned those. So the OECD is not just about literacy, numeracy, science. It's about helping countries to have an assessment where they can actually find out how their young people are progressing. Who are the novices? Who are the competent? Who are the proficient ones? Indeed, who are the emerging experts? Various competencies. I have referred to progression, the idea of progression, and that's certainly what a lot of these competencies are based around. They're not something that somebody will grade one and it's a grade two as how it is. These progress from novice through to expert. At schools, we're more likely should aim to have all students proficient. If we can have emerging experts, very hard across all of these, but imagine it. Imagine your school, you had a whole host of emerging experts as communicators, culturally inclusive people, entrepreneurs, innovators, critical thinkers, collaborators, working able to work with others. How powerful would they be? Not only for your community, not only for your country, but for both. The imperative's there, isn't it? I hope you like expert there. That's nice, and I do like to take that photo every now and then just to show my daughter to say, look, someone thinks I'm an expert. I know you don't, but someone does. So this is us, 32 countries meeting 2030 projects, and we are working on this. There are frameworks, the OECD 2030 Learning Framework. If you want to have a look at it, go to the OECD website, look up Learning Framework, 2030 Learning Framework, or the Learning Compass. There's a lovely little illustration that shows you imagine what it means. In the hands here, we've got some fabulous students here that directed me here today. Imagine them with this compass, emotional compass, where they can navigate the world, they can navigate the future. That's what we're talking about. They're equipped with these competencies. They're empowered. They've got agency. There's UNESCO's transversal skills. The ones in yellow are the ones I've worked on and with. Did an assessment of transversal skills for Asia Pacific. US National Research Council, Deep Learning, 21st Century, P21 Partnership, the European Commission, its framework for competencies, lifelong learning. These are all talking about these things. And the World Bank's, the KAIS, Korean Centre, developed the ASEAN +3 skills study, the +3 of 3 countries that aren't part of ASEAN. So what are the themes that are coming through? Economic competitiveness. So countries want to be economic. They want to be competitors with the world. They want to compete with the world. So what they want is they want to recalibrate the young people are equipped. Rote learning was mentioned earlier. You're not going to be equipped to create new knowledge if all you can rely on is passive receiving knowledge and giving back. That's, that once was valued, it's not valued. Remember, you do have to remember some things, clearly. Know-how is important. Knowledge is a part of competency. Procedural knowledge is very important. We don't want people exploring being creative as pedestrians crossing the road. You want to know some procedures that you take to do that. In mathematics, there's some procedures that it's important that you recall, and you recall those. That actually saves time for you to do the other more intellectual and use that load rather than take time actually working through to discover something that you actually should just know. Employability skills and dispositions. As I said, any of the huge global companies employ people. They put them through little tasks, not little, sorry. Sometimes, these go for a week and they observe. They observe who collaborates, who works well in the team, who takes the lead, who's a really competent listener, who can stand up to some difficult challenges that are presented to them. And they watch and they look and they identify those people that are actually right learning won't get you there. And citizens, fair to say, in one of Kazakh's values is around the country and being proud of the country, and that you will find across a lot of countries. And some countries have been under a lot of pressure, a lot of immigration. France is an election at the moment. There's debates in government. Same in Germany, where there's been massive immigration. So the question is, what does it mean to be German? What does it mean? These are important local considerations. A lot of countries don't have that, but maybe they feel they need their young people to be proud of their citizenship and be active citizens, helping make sure there's cohesion in society and recognize others and personal social characteristics. All those things that are going to get you on in life, being able to get on with people. All those competencies that relate to everyday work, turning up on time, being resilient, being respectful, taking responsibility, being disappointed, handling setbacks. All these things are very important, and we can't. This is a reflection. We can't rely these things are going to happen in the home and from the home. Yes, we would hope a lot of these non-cognitive areas and values are created from within the home, but we cannot guarantee that. Schools are an incredible safety net. It is the place, and you've got 12, 13 years to model these competencies and ensure that they are, that our young people are equipped with it, regardless of the at home. We are, I've just released a book called The Knowing and Caring Profession. That is what we are. Right? We are there to, when I say knowing, means that we are professional, we have professional knowledge, and we care. We care, we are the parents each day. We are the critical, we are the important adults that are there for every young person. So, these are the kinds of things countries are. They want children to be literate and numerate, strong foundation. They want them to be agile, having the flexibility of mind and the skills, capacity to respond to unknown or unexpected circumstances. They want them to be compassionate. They want them to be committed to reducing violence, respecting others, social cohesion. They want them to be innovative, acquiring entrepreneurial, innovative skills and attitudes, gaining new knowledge. I can see people there just ticking off the 5 that they had in their list. They want them to be global in one's response and international engagement skills. They want them to be digitally literate, having the skills, dispositions to adapt to new technology. They want them to be positive about their own potential and their contributions. Well-being is significant. They want them to be fair and just, care about sustainability, society, of the environment, of the economy. They want them to be reliable, to have an obligation to others, dependable, responsible. They want them to be reflective in one's response, having social entrepreneurial behaviours, pro-social skills and behaviours. That's pretty powerful stuff, isn't it? Imagine if every one of you had those competencies. Is it any surprise that countries are wanting this? Everyone would want this. How do we do it? Okay. So we've got all this terminology. These are the kind of words that you wrote down, you find them appearing now in curriculum, in policies, indeed in statements made from education ministers, from prime ministers, presidents, from heads of schooling systems, maybe from yourself, from heads of schools. Familiar? Yeah. I'm assuming some of those Ashok, were in the new policy, the new national policy. These are the kind of things we want. I can see people taking photographs. I'm happy for the slides to be made available. Bill and OCR are comfortable with that. Okay, so Silver says, these are not new, these competencies, they're just newly important. Ashok mentioned that right at the beginning. It's not like these things are new. They're at a different altitude now. They're really important. And this is how we distinguish between who gets a job and, in fact, many universities, increasingly, who gets accepted. We don't want doctors that just are fabulous at maths and science but have no ability to relate to their patients. We don't want engineers that are fantastic at maths that don't understand what the sustainability issues of their designs are or the impact that this will have on human beings, either positively or negatively. I could go on and on. In Ontario, the front of Ontario's curriculum, it says, what's new in the 21st century is the call for education systems to emphasise and develop these competencies in explicit and intentional ways through deliberate changes in curriculum design and pedagogical practice. It's not enough to just list these in the front of the curriculum and somehow think teachers are going to know how to teach them and then find that the curriculum makes no reference to them. Twenty-first century competencies, the extent to which changes in the economy and the world mean that collective and individual success depends on having such skills and dispositions. Those are the ones I listed. UNESCO, without a definitive paradigm shift, many curricula will continue to fail to facilitate learning. They will continue to register poor learning outcomes remain irrelevant for the future. So what we're effectively saying is some curricula across the world, they're preparing children for last century, not for this one, or for the years that follow. Lambert, I wonder how that got in there. Always take the opportunity to quote yourself if you can. The actual selection and prioritisation of competency countries is not universal. So the ones that are being selected by countries are not exactly the same. Sometimes they're similar. Different factors are influencing the choices governments are making based on their particular geopolitical circumstances, social contracts, current and projected workforce trends, and respect as a competency now embedded in Japan's curriculum. Who would have thought Japan would have to include in its curriculum respect? It relates to the country with the most rapidly aging population and increasing lack of respect by the young, the elderly, going to have to work for the rest of their lives, are limited in how many children they can have because they can't afford that, because most of their money is taxed and going after the elderly that are staying on and living much longer than they did. In Australia, respectful relationships is just being in our curriculum. It relates to gender-based violence, respectful relations between boys and girls. So we've both got the same word, respect, but the competency that is being identified relates to something slightly different. Some of these are universal. Critical thinking is universal, but some of the values depends on the circumstance. So across the globe, there are all different factors impacting on these countries, and the decisions they're making are based on their own circumstances, plus to some degree global responsibility. And 3 competencies called zest for life, isn't it great? Having a zest for life. Finland has 7 competencies, Australia has 7 general capabilities and 3 priorities. The ones in yellow are the countries that I've worked with and supported. British Columbia, 3 core competencies, Singapore 8, Brazil has 10 general competencies, Qatar 7, Kazakhstan 6 values, 7 core skills, Netherlands 4 themes, 9 competencies. So every one of these countries have identified these competencies. Okay, here's the next task. Can you tell me which country has this vision? Which minister or prime minister or president or secretary of education has this vision? Just think which country that might be. Education in and for the 21st century will provide our young people with the knowledge, skills, values, and attitudes for participating productively in the knowledge economy, making a positive contribution to society as active citizens, being fair and honest and respecting others, living healthy and satisfying lives, acting responsibly in relation to the environment. Which country?
Oh. India also. India also. Yeah. Sorry?
Australia.
You are the first audience that got the answer right so early.
Don't know if you heard the answer there. Absolutely right. I wrote this in 5 minutes. So, sorry. So it was a mean task that I gave you. Yes, it doesn't belong to a particular country, but I have read so many. I know exactly how they read, and it's not like countries don't look at other and prepare for their minister a vision statement, and it sounds right, sounds good. Yeah, yeah, they're all saying the same things. That's the easy part. Here's the logic. So you have the vision, the root purpose of schooling. This is what we're trying to do. And notice if you shift on the right there, so spinning right around here, heading clockwise. What comes first? Curriculum. So if you believe in all those statements, doesn't the logic say that you write a curriculum that delivers that? That you will give teachers the guide, the words that effectively enable the teacher, their pedagogy. They'll read this, they'll say, okay, this means active learning. This means these competencies are responsibilities. These have been elevated. Logical, isn't it? That's the first hard step. Getting curriculum writers to actually translate that vision into curriculum. Then, teaching. So, let's say you get that far, then teachers have to know actually how to interpret that curriculum into their practice. Means they need to be trained. You can't just tell a teacher collaboration is one of our goals, so that's it, you know how to do that. No, there's techniques and there's skills and there's ways that the curriculum can be written to encourage that, but they also need to know how to do critical thinking. Another example, I could go through a lot of these. So even if we get to curriculum, we then have to prepare our teachers to be able to deliver that in classrooms for student learning. You think that's hard? Then we actually have to ensure the assessment regime actually values those things. And the tools and the strategies have been designed to assess student learning in relation to those. Now, Amit would tell this has a huge influence on that. Actually, more than that. Oh, very naughty and walking away from the microphone. Assessment has a huge influence on teaching, more so than the assessment tail wags the teacher. Right? So countries, when I meet with organisers around curriculum development, I meet with ministers, give me their vision. I'm very diplomatic. I usually say, are you serious what you want to do? Because it's quite challenging, really. You've got to then make sure you put resources across the side, teach the teachers, to train the teachers, and by the way, there are going to be textbook companies that won't want you to change the curriculum at all, and if this becomes more competency-based, they can see some of their profits going down the drain, so they're not going to be real happy. There are some academics that don't want reform as well. So it's not like you haven't got opposition outside, and within teachers need to feel confident. And by the way, when I work with your curriculum people, I want the assessment people in there. I want them hearing the same message as the curriculum people. Now, end up if you think I'm a really nice guy. I appear to be. You wouldn't know, but I am. But and if you think so far that I appear to be a reasonably nice person. One hand. Oh, thank you. Well, I am, but I say to the minister, I'm going to tell you at the end of the 5 days whether your assessment people are actually the right people. They may be fabulous at setting exams, and you will probably still want to do that. But I'll know by their responsiveness when we're involved in activities. I'll know, create the tools and the training, help teachers understand that assessment is not, examinations are a science here. How do you assess? Who said collaboration? You talked about collaboration. How you can assess collaboration in the test?
Projects, group activities.
Exactly, not in an exam. You're going to observe, you're going to see products, you're going to, respect. How do you, yes, a child can tell you how to respect. Does that mean they walk out the door, they'll be respectful? No. You could tell me who are the most respectful students in your class. You make little observation. What would help you make more, don't take this the wrong way, more authentic and consistent would be some tools that help you to identify what respect looks like. What it looks like with a 5-year-old, what it might look like 10-year-old, 10-year-old, and so on. So there's a whole lot of tools and strategies in here that will help teachers. If they're not created, if the same assessment programs operate, then you can see we've got little barriers to this logic. If we beautifully do all this, it's probably going to be easier to do the reporting because we'll have data and we'll be able to say, we'll be able to effectively have information that we can report to parents, we can report to the school, we can report to the system, so that whoever stated this vision, guess what? We're able to actually say how we're progressing. It is no use having a vision if you don't do all of that. Then it's just, and that's not going to get you that outcome. Yeah? Okay, so what are the challenges? Some of them I've already mentioned. Teacher preparedness. There's 2 forms of preparedness in the research literature. One is, I'm a maths teacher, I'm not a respect teacher. Now, it's hard to teach collaboration. I get it. And you don't do maths to learn collaboration. You do music to learn collaboration. Obviously, if you can't collaborate in music, then there's a problem, probably going to be, except if you're a solo performer, maybe. The collaboration, of course, finds its way in various ways across all of the subject areas. Critical thinking does. Some people say there's no creative thinking in maths. I was a maths consultant. I wrote maths curricula. Who else is from maths background? Oh, you'd be deeply offended, wouldn't you, if someone said there's no creativity in maths? Absolutely, there is. So a lot of these competencies are either heavily targeted or sub-targeted. Yeah, across the different learning areas. Some have natural homes, and of course that's where you really have to work hard to embed those curriculum, embed them. But some teachers would say, oh, that's the responsibility of the parents, it's not mine. We can't accept that anymore. We model collaboration. Hidden curriculum is alive. Well, everything we do, students watch, observe, don't you? Yeah, yeah. You know how respect in a school? You know about collaboration, what it looks like. Teachers model these things outside of classrooms and inside and through the content of subject areas if the curriculum people have helped you along the way. And of course, teachers need the knowledge and capacity to be able to deliver these things. And there are entrenched norms, there are exams, there are textbooks, parental expectations, and there's the media and political opposition. What's all this fancy? All this progressive stuff. So on the one hand, there are aspirations for young people to equip them for the future, but there'll be opposition. And so your political leaders, school leaders, system leaders have to be, there are strategies to make it work, but if they buckle quickly, we'll keep teaching young people the last century. I've only been here for a period of day. I can tell they're a great leader of the school. You can just feel it. You know, I was expected for a number of years. I knew walking in, or sometimes I just, but walking into the school, I could tell whether this is a well-led school. And that doesn't mean dictatorial. Best leaders have what Dr. Yadav has, beautiful mix of strength and human touch. They relate to people, but when decisions have to be made that are in the interest of students, he backs student outcome and need above everything else. And that's what we need, because there will be opposition. But there are ways around it. Stakeholder engagement, engage people early in the conversation. I'm not, I tune here, but I need you to talk about this topic is a way of engaging people. I would hope when you leave, it's difficult to not realise that these competencies I've talked about are essential. We just cannot ignore the importance of it for our young people. But we need to engage parents. This is why we're doing it. And they won't be disadvantaged. In fact, by the way, in their exam, they'll actually be more empowered. A lot of these competencies are about empowering them, not disempowering. Of course, assessment strategies can change, and engaging the assessment people, that's going to be great too. Assessment reform, tools and strategies, these have to be created. We talked about ACR doing brilliant work in this regard. And those can happen through a whole range of mechanisms. So, look at the websites, find out what's being created for you, what's available for you, or through networks, as Amit mentioned. Quality teacher training. Teachers, in my regard, and from my experience,
Yes, there will be teachers that will oppose, the natural bell code. There are teachers that will oppose anything. There are teachers that will go with anything, maybe too quickly. They're excited. They'll take on any new thing. The bulk of teachers are professional. They want to do a good job. They won't experiment with students' lives, outcomes. So what they want to do, they need convincing that this is in the interest of their students. And it is. A driver is a good thing, is the entry into a universities now. Very few universities in Australia now look for that final mark. In Australia we have this odd system where 13 years of education comes down to a single mark. That's not good enough for entry into universities in Australia anymore. Not sure if the same case here in India, but many of our students get entry into their university of choice before the exams. They've been able to demonstrate through portfolio that they actually have a range of competencies and have done well in this school prior to a strong. Universities don't want to wait for that final mark. They actually want to pick and choose competent young people. With AI, we don't want to create these lovely young people as second-rate robots. We want them to be first-rate humans. Yeah, the robots can do some of that stuff. We want them to have all these competencies to be first-rate humans. And so after 18 years, wow, you've got a huge responsibility. You've already identified know what they are. There's work to be done. Make sure you get them correct on teaching, assessment, and reporting. It's a volatile, unpredictable, complex, and ambiguous world. How well are we preparing our young people today and tomorrow? That's something you can reflect on in your own circumstances, your own classroom, school. So, questions, comments, concerns, people walking out the door? Yes. Thank you. We've got another microphone, or do you want this one? Here it comes. Fantastic.
I wish to make a statement which could be comment or concern. That we talked about all the competencies, and you may assume that what I'm going to say is, hidden or embedded in that. But what about happy set learners at 18? Like we talk about lifelong learning. What about happiness quotient? What about being a learner, being self-motivated, high self-esteem, confidence?
Yeah, so feeling happy and content. Yeah, I don't think there's a good measure. Too much happiness and content means you may not seek to acquire some of these other important competencies. Well-being is so important. It's actually for the 2030 project. It's the umbrella, right? But it's not just the umbrella of well-being for the person. It's the society. It's the environment. It's economic. We're not afraid to say economic well-being because we know it's important. That helps young people as they grow into adulthood. And what your economic well-being as an individual might be different to mine. I've come from a country where we have Indigenous people who have, I'm not going to generalise here, but they would say, individuals I know would say, I'm not interested in money. What I want, I've got a different kind of wealth that I'm after. I just need enough to get on because I just need the freedom to be able to love my land and live my land. So I think happiness means something different to everyone, but if the umbrella is well-being, we really need to pursue. Yeah, you're not wrong. I'm not. I didn't write the word happiness. I know, but
What I meant was optimum levels varying in the range will be like the outcomes best for
yes.
to achieve something.
Yes. Thank you, Asha. Margaret, yeah.
Thanks, sir. I want to make a quick comment. One of the things that we worked on in the last few years is the framework for Bhutan. As many of you would know, Bhutan pioneered a concept called gross national happiness. Yeah, it was one of the most difficult things for us to incorporate in the assessment framework because how do you measure happiness, right? So I really feel I think about well-being. It's about having a well-adjusted human being who is also a lifelong learner who's able to fend for themselves. But I feel a little careful about specifying happiness as something that we want to include as a competency in framework. Then adds several complications to how to be measured, how you achieve it, and all of that. And my happiness very different from your happiness, which is true. Because I mean, I'm happiest when I'm doing nothing but reading a very exciting book. Other people are happy when they're out say water skiing or golfing or whatever. So concept is very contentious.
Yeah, contemporary. Yeah.
Well adjusted, protective.
Thanks, Simon. That just reminds me I need to stick in my books. Enjoy on the book. But that's true. I mean, the other thing clearly here too, I've seen unhappiness, and unhappiness is lack of engagement, seeing a lack of relevance in what I'm learning. So I think that's imperative for us as well. Make sure I mentioned earlier about progression to making sure we look at each individual and what it means for them to be engaged. That's unhappiness is when I was saying earlier to Ashok that in Brazil, year 12, 20% attendance, 20% attendance, and that's because of what they're required to learn. There are some learners that just see no relevance in what they're learning, no relevance at all to their life, and they vote with their feet, don't turn up. Any other questions or concerns? Yes.
First of all, thank you, Phil, for that fantastic insight. I have a question taking you from what Amit said also and what we were saying earlier, that let's say in our classroom, how do you measure in an assessment, how do you measure collaboration? It might not be possible in a turn-in examination. A piece of paper can't tell me that I am 78% collaborative today and after 6 months I'm 43% collaborative. So that doesn't make sense. So what all the competencies got discussed today, if I understand correctly, all of them are on human behaviors. So now the question is, how do you measure behaviors on a day-to-day basis? Now, when you are in the let's say a project-based learning environment, yes, in a teamwork, you can observe how the two people, the two students are interacting, whether they are respectful to each other's opinions or not, all those are things. So, how efficiently or effectively can you design rubrics for that? Number one, as you said, from a novice to an expert level. And number two, as an educator, as a teacher, what is your suggestion that what is the frequency with which we observe those so that those remedial or those corrective measures?
Excellent question. Thank you, question. Okay, several elements to this. Firstly, to be able to make judgments about individuals, what you need is a progression charge. That can't be designed by anyone. When we developed the Australian curriculum, three cross-curriculum priorities, and we had 7 general capabilities, effectively competencies. And they are in progression by levels. You can put them in levels. There is any range of these across, by the way. I've designed some for the city Catholic schools, system of Catholic schools over Catholic schools. With Kazakhstan, I shared with them it's likely I'm going to be working on their competency frameworks. So these are progressions, and you can chop them up. What you can't really chop them up into grades, but there's a big progression of behaviour between grade 1 and 2. So over a period of time, you can try and do it, but it's, it's a bit of false. You're only putting words here and difference. Basically, what those frameworks should be used by to make sure that the competencies are being developed in and across the learning areas from a novice through to and that can be 5 levels, you can do 4 levels, you can do 3, all you like. And your point about, well, when do you make the assessment of this? If they're embedded in the curriculum, well, you are making those judgments around the learning objectives. That exists. You can, as I said, to countries I work with, so you can either do it that way, or you can actually use the framework and reporting tool. For some of those, there could be a combination depending on the competence, whether some element knowledge-based require some form of assessment, exam, but others it's observable and it's a judgment over time. And someone here had the excellent answer of problem solving. Yeah, it was you again. Gosh, you're getting a lot of parent certificates today, aren't you? In primary school, the gold star. With problem solving, if you're a good problem solver in maths, does that mean you're a good problem solver in visual arts? No. So the context changes, and even in maths, there might be some aspects that you're a very good problem solver. What we do know about problem solving is the more problems you do, the more you work on strategies, and when you have a similar problem, the next time you actually know the strategies to use. So if you want good problem solvers, guess what? You've got to solve lots of problems. Yeah, and like and different and grow from that. So with all of these, you need the tools, you need the frameworks. They can't be just thought up by a teacher. That's why I said right at the beginning, when countries put a list of competencies and they put problem solving in front of the curriculum, we want our children to be great problem solvers, and then they don't do anything about it. Does the teacher know how to develop problem solving? Yes, word problems in maths, that's not what we're talking about here. The full range of working through a solution, inquiry-based process. Did I answer all of that? Oh, when might you do it? Well, same question I went with the Catholics. So I did the work with them. I said, I thought you were going to ask me this, but I'll now have to ask you, when do you want to use this? Do you want to use it in your primary school every year? Because what you'll be doing is some kids will stay novice for a while, But are you going to leave it to the very end? Well, maybe not. You want to monitor to see which children are moving through these levels. So, and by the way, you don't have to call them novice level, you just call them level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You tell me what your intentions are, and I can develop a framework for you to help.
So just 30 seconds more. Sorry for dragging this. But this is where the real problem actually I personally have faced was when I was with the working with the British Council, so we did try and work on these kind of rubrics, taking cue from the transversal skills and 60s of people as well. So the problem came in the granularity in the classroom. When the measurement was happening, what the schools and the teachers came back and told us that when we have to report this, so again the problem of grade-based or age-based kind of classroom. At the end of that one academic year, we need to report something to the parents. So how do we solve that issue?
Well, as long as it schools don't report behaviours of students to parents in some way. Reports, of course. But the key with this determining when it might be most appropriate. My personal feeling is not every year, but you use this as a way of touch points to find out how things are progressing in you achieving that vision. How are we going? Are there any areas where we don't see it all? That's the first thing. Secondly, one of the things we did do, which I'm very proud of, training curriculum, is work samples, and a whole range of work samples that were both oral, the video, oral recordings. Other times they're videos, sometimes they're actually student work. And what we're able to show is achievement or not in relation to how these were being. That's really helpful for teachers because, I'm a teacher of grade 3. I don't know what problem solving looks like in a competent performance or what child hasn't quite even reached novice stage. Looking at examples of work and having some mechanism for making a judgment, consistent judgment that isn't just purely your own, based on your own life experience, which might be just in one school rather than range. So where I said teacher capacity, part of that are the resource tools and strategies. It's not just tools, it's resources, material to help those judgments be made. Yeah, it's not enough just to say, we think these are important, go off and do it. It's important. Yeah. Have we got a microphone back here? And
I also have a question here.
Sorry, you grabbed the microphone. Sorry.
So this is, thank you first of all, thank you very much for the session and very insightful. And thank you, Mr. Pandey, for inviting all of us here. And this is in continuation of this question. So in fact, when we're talking about assessment of so-called behaviors, when we talk about competencies, so there are behaviors that we're assessing. And you did mention that we need to train our teachers, we need to build the capacity so that they are able to know what they're supposed to do. So my concern, my colleague concern, is would there be objectivity? Because I may look at something differently. For example, if I'm talking about empathy and compassion, so the framework that we have within that framework also would there be any subjectivity possible or will it be objective?
Okay, 2 points. Firstly, not every one of the competencies that I'm mentioned and we put up there are non-cognitive. Some of them are skills that are actually procedural, digital risk associated with ability using digital tools. But within that, remember I said knowledge, skills, dispositions all come together, would be an attitude towards willing to change when the device changes. Yeah. So yes, there are elements there that are non-cognitive. I thought I answered your question when I said that making sure teachers have the resources where they can make their judgments are purely on their own life experience as a teacher. But here is published examples of work done by students, which could be a behaviour or could be a product, and this is the assessment that was made about that big course. It had these elements. So when we say respect, or when we say critical thinking, it's not like it's a single thing. There are elements of each of those. Asking questions. If you're a teacher grade 1, grade 2, you would be able to make a judgment about which of your students regularly ask questions. One of the first competencies in problem solving, research skills, inquiry, is you ask questions. So that's the first thing we want young people to do. So I wouldn't see that as being something that a teacher couldn't make a judgment of. But as it becomes finer, what we need is the examples. Many of these available. And by the way, there are some assessment items available that have been created. And it talked about work ACR stuff. OECD is doing some of this material. I think Ashok, you were talking about 360. So not just getting the view of the teacher, but you get the view of the student themselves, you get the view of the parents. So it's doable, believe me. It is. And I think the profession can do this. I think we need to own it and be confident that our colleagues can do this. And by the way, I think it was my star pupil here who mentioned this. You're a star. In fact, you all are. We find who's 23rd in respect in our class and who's 24th. Or who, right? We're not making that. This kind of judgment is, are they proficient? Generally, yes, they may not be in every single circumstances. They may not be in every subject, and we can make that distinction. What we're not doing is trying to score and rank students with non-cognitive areas. Okay? So we want them to be respectful. I don't want to make a measure of that one's 23rd in respect, and that one's 24th, and that one's first in the class in respect. There's no such thing. And by the way, the one you say number first, you might see them kick an old person on the way out the door. So suddenly you go, suddenly they go to the end of the class. It's a professional judgment. I think we can talk to the happening. Oh, we've got a few more minutes? Yeah. Wait for the microphone. I can hear you, but my friends, the mathematicians, can't hear you down the back there.
Hello.
Yeah.
Thank you, Phil, for a very beautiful, insightful presentation. So my takeaway is that capacity building, the competency building leads to capacity building. So this is my takeaway for today. And my question again stems out for what Arijit has said, that as a reflective practitioner, as an educator, what is your suggestion for the schools to build up a metrics for measuring the non-cognitive skills? So, once I said this, I need to say that shall it be customized by the school in sync with the vision statement of the school, or shall it pertinently be the content or the ingredients which leads to mastery of learning?
Brilliant.
So,
Another,
what
another
is your
very good question. Look, this approach is on several levels. You've got now national policy. Fantastic in your country through curricula, through, and I know you have different states that have responsibility, and you're a federation like Australia, so that always adds another dimension. But yes, at a systemic level, it you can do this work. I explained here, it can be managed there. But that's not saying it can't be done at a school level. What's more challenging, of course, are those frameworks, getting those right. But I would be surprised that there's any school represented here that has got a whole list of values and states, and it talks about and it's made reference to in various places in the and pronouncements about the 21st century and this is what we're developing in young people, then I guess the approach you can take, if you haven't got all those tools, is at least to say, well, how well are we monitoring what we say we're producing? Just have we checked? What might we look at? There are tools that you can purchase or acquire that might just help you. And you might therefore become kind of a lighthouse school for other schools, because what you're trying to do is be honest with your vision. Other people probably are honest, but they need to actually work on it and activate to make sure that they're achieving what they are. If you have values in your school, my idea would be to say, well, what would they look like? What would this look like in the classroom? What might they look like in subject? You're not going to get consistency clearly against other schools, but at least what you're doing is monitoring what you say you believe is important. Yeah, got a question in the back.
Thank you so much, Phil. My question is from in teaching, assessing, reporting, where do you see the scope of students' voice?
Where you see our student voice.
Yeah.
Beautiful question. I didn't ask you to ask that question, but I just want proof here.
And also what advice you give the students to become good self-assessors? Because it's not only us assessing them. We
Okay.
have to develop the ability of a student assessing herself or himself.
Excellent. I'll tell you what, the organisers have gathered together Brains Trust of India. Absolutely, that's a great question. Okay, so I'm writing a report at the moment for the OECD on curriculum, autonomy and flexibility. I will tend to quite openly, not just, sorry, curriculum quite openly, not just curriculum, but teaching, autonomy, the teachers have pedagogy, assessment, making assessment decisions, and the other one was actually on time. Okay. Now, part of that, there's an interesting dilemma we put in there, and that was unexpected things emerge. And that one of those is the definition, the difference between student choice, student voice, and student agency. So one of the first things you've got to find out is the person, do they need choice, do they need voice, or do they need agency? So just very quickly, the way we've defined it, and the literature's helped us, choice means, that's the lowest level, that basically means when there are choices to be made about electives. Students can choose which subjects that they're going to have on their study program. Pretty straightforward. Usually it's limited. It's not like you can choose any area you like. Student voice might be that we get these two students and say, tell us the things that you think are really working and what are the things that do with improvement. Let's do an example. I'm going to ask about improvements because that would be not, I would do publicly, but I think there'd be very few. What are the things that are really working well here?
The career guidance
The career guidance. Thank you for sharing that with me. You know what? Why I did that in other words? Okay, thank you. We've heard your voice. Doesn't mean we do anything with it. If you were to say something negative, thank you for sharing that. So you can hear voice and do nothing with it. Agency means students saying, I want to learn this way. This is how I learn. And by the way, I'm not finding that subject relevant at all. So in other words, oh, okay, you're hearing students' perspective and taking some action. Okay, we've got students aren't getting the relevance, so we've got to act on this. So the three are different. You're about self-assessment. So how can we engage students in being part of this decision-making process? Two things. Students are particularly important in giving their perspective on things. They're not always accurate in their judgments of themselves, not always. So some students may think they're outstanding artists, and I think, okay, it's a nice little drawing. It's, so if they've got criteria, rubrics, like we have, then that's helpful. Self-assessment. What was I able to do this? How do I reflect? So it has to be built into the program about self-reflection on a whole lot of things, and then some rubrics about to help them make those judgments. And they can do the same with peers, peer assessment of each other, but that has to be handled really carefully because it's quite hurtful if it's not done properly. Ah, yes, sorry.
So I think in one statement, I would say that we have to the vision fine, but we are honest with the learner in the sense that we know, we try to understand what the learner wants, what is he trying to do, and why is he trying to.
Absolutely.
And also, this it's very nice to have rubrics and rules, but we have seen in our everyday life, learning science, just of what we use tools can be confused unless we understand the process of the making of the
Yes.
So that requires a complete paradigm shift the way we look at the classroom.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yeah, the logic model.
The problem here is that our education is guided by assessment.
Yes.
So assessment becomes the primary.
Yeah.
Also, as you said, that integrates an exposition. For me, that is teachers from the beliefs that we hold. So, I think more what most of our reflection by the teachers themselves.
Yeah.
And the understanding that why we have therefore and also
Yeah.
and unless marriage is evolving, right? Basic process. Unless we understand so that's it. Collaboration dynamics and the upcoming that I mentioned also impressed by the presentation because we have three thoughts given of this but when we organize this in a framework where policy. So this when you become when you resolve is then when you do the rules.
Yeah.
When you know the rules, you know how to describe the characteristics. You cannot give it yours.
Yeah.
And you may be a partial information, but if the bit partially, how of expressing how it is, why it is. So then you need to change. Need to change the way we understand classroom activities and the teaching process.
Yeah, I know that's a beautiful, nicely rounded assessment of it. There's a fabulous UNESCO quote, I'll finish on this, that says assessment holds many great reforms or hostage. That even some of the greatest attempts to reform have been held back because the process didn't change. Now, does that mean we give up? No. Certainly, as I said, we need the assessment people to be working with us as we work on these reforms, and in a number of countries that is actually happening. But the other thing is the assessment examinations. We just take that slice. Yes, sometimes we've got all the that, but what we have to clearly, as you said, holistically, we have to elevate the importance of all these competencies and making sure we're monitoring those and reporting on them. Because actually they're the things that are going to make the difference between a child getting a job, in the future getting access and doing well through university placement. But in life, these are skills that are just so transferable, competencies that are transferable, lifelong learning, that we don't eschew the examinations, certainly don't eschew the learning areas or disciplines. They're fundamental. We live with those, and some respects people passionately with those, but these are so important, these competencies, that we are doing our students a disservice. Don't elevate them to the level they deserve. Thank you. Can you just, as you're clapping, I want to get a photograph. Now, I said that to encourage you to clap, by the way. One more question.
Thank you, sir, for a wonderful session. I just want to share first my one view. In addition, just project collaboration students, we can develop collaboration by peer tutoring also. By peer tutoring. Yeah. And my concern is, I believe sometimes child's competence may differ according to the perception of different teachers.
Yes. Yeah.
So in that case, what's the
I missed one word. what are different teachers?
The child's competency may differ to the perception of it. Like if a student has interest in maths, so he will be attending the maths class very sincerely.
So how they relate to the teacher and the subject area varies between, yeah. Well, clearly, one of our major objectives has to engage students. Clearly, deeper learning, which some of these competencies are about, will help that. And it talked about, not seeing things always from a grade base where you rush through, and clearly in some countries the crowdedness of the curriculum forces this rush through. And of course, students have dispositions and have different subjects that they're engaged with. And there are some where individuals see a lack of relevance. What does this mean for me? So one of the things that we're doing in curriculum, countries I work with, is how to make this relevant. And by the way, what this sometimes means, we have to jettison some things. We actually have to get rid of some things that are no longer relevant. Yes, they've been around for a while. Teachers might love them. They might be their favourite thing they like to talk about teaching. They might have great resources about them. But it's like teaching students about fax machines. Why would you teach children about fax machines? It's like teaching 13 times tables. There's a lot of things that we actually have to be forensic and say, we want time spent in deep learning, not rushing through things and not teaching things that actually have no value for the future. Okay, I want to get that clap. Sorry, I'm going to put.
Thank you. So thank you very much for the lessons that we had. And filled all the gaps.
Failed or filled?
Yeah.
Failed or filled?
Filled. And no wonder you just like, and we are also happy. But two things to highlight, which are not filled was very first thing is that, when we're talking global competencies, the competencies will have global context in their own geography. Did you say that? Am I right? And that needs to be highlighted in which even you ask the question about happiness. You talk about Bhutan, how would happiness can be worded. You know what is happiness in that state? Russia has threatened that if you want match with the EU now. Now, what is the happiness level of happiness? So these are the contexts, right? And the second thing which I think I think when we were 18 years old, probably our teachers did not prepare us for all those things. We want our children to prepare. But then this is another opportunity now. All those competencies, if we want our 18 years olds, we develop it ourselves also. That is what teacher preparedness is all. And then only will be confident to assess them. And collaboration we talked about is very difficult to assess, I believe. But then we have to make clear what all components and targets and sub-targets of collaboration are. And then if I want collaboration here, then probably I should know that where Professor Bavaria can collaborate and where Amit can collaborate, where Indu Yadav can collaborate, then probably that collaboration will come up. So as a teacher, I have to know what are your agencies. So I think that is also one very important which as teachers. So these are a couple of my thoughts. I thought that I'll take your permission to add it. Thank you very much. Lunch is ready and distracted with the aroma for last 5 minutes. But I will invite my colleague Sanjay to formally propose the board.
You foresee the lunch? After that.
Brenda, I did your job. I think it's going to be very, very difficult for us to come down and then get into the mood of attracted by the aroma. Because the aroma that has been set on right now, the thoughts the way they have been elevated, the kind of process we are there, we are different cloud altogether, and that's where we are all connected. So having this opportunity to connect with each and having Professor Phil to take us to the same level and then giving us with a lot of thoughts. Because what is important is that takeaway is not that this session happened and we learned something, just something, and we've got a solution. So we are going to straight away go and rather when it comes to observation, when it comes to thinking, yes, beginning from the process of an 18-year-old presenting his or her perspective, looking at an 18-year-old passing out from the same stage and coming and walking with confidence and coming and presenting that what has their journey been like or how do they want life and how do they want to progress is what is, I won't call it an assistance, but it is what is the preparedness one. So we as educators, of course, from the 3-year-old when he walks into the school building to 18-year-old when he or she is walking out of the school, and then also the journey does not end. It's a lifelong bond, it's a lifelong connection which remains there, and we keep learning, changing our perspective, we keep looking at their journey. So obviously there is no report card which is going to talk about even if it is a 360-degree holistic report card. It's not going to have a scope of presenting that this is the competency which the child has to learn or present, but giving them a statement of purpose which they are able to write on their own, which they are able to rewrite on their own, and which they are able to act. Giving them that elevation of thoughts that yes, where it is desirable, whether it is a part of the assessment or not, but where does their priority lie? Valuing relationship that in spite of having all the success, in spite of achieving whatever they call so-called successful life, and yet something which can strike it down in 1 minute. So this is what is to be valued, and this is what needs to be done. So on this beautiful afternoon, I am speechless. I have no words to thank. But yes, my thanking begins with thanking the children and my dear educators who have created that installation when you enter with a lot of thoughts, with some reflection on assessment to evolution of the child or what goes in the mind of the child and the process of churning which happens to this beautiful arrangement which has, I'm sure, kept you all comfortable and you were all engaged without worrying about any logistics or anything else. Every team member and who has been able to make it live and reach it to so many other people who, for some reason or the other, have not been able to attend this. And a resource which is when it's on YouTube live, it is going to be available for a longer time. You can always go back and listen to the talk. To each and every one of you who has been able to voice your concern or give your own reflection and thoughts and comments, not just in the form of question. So obviously, like a wonderful class where every child is excited. It was an ideal display of how a teacher connects with the child, and that's where it goes to our great teacher here. So let's give a round of applause to Dr. Phil for bringing that. Of course, thankful to Amitji and Team Acer, who is here to bring in such wonderful collaboration as Ashok sir took us down the memory lane with reconnected that yes, this auditorium has witnessed many historic moments. So this is something that is added to it. And the most important and most valuable constituent of this event together is the collaboration which you have displayed by coming. So my sincere thanks to each one of you for your valuable presence and not just presence but adding value to the discussions here. And of course, a lot of takeaway for each one of us, for my wonderful team for organizing it so beautifully. Of course, I want to thank the people who have made this wonderful lunch for us so that we will be able to enjoy it all together. And let's hope the journey continues. Thank you so much.
So, for your kind words of gratitude. And thank you, Dr. Rangul, for his enlightening words. And a heartfelt gratitude to the trailblazers present here who make the source of students blossom and transform them into intelligent, enlightened personalities. Thank you so much for being with us throughout. Please proceed for the lunch and have a great day ahead. Thank you, everyone.
मीटिंग भी ऑफ कर दूं